In the bustling streets of Manila, where jeepneys raced through puddles and children laughed barefoot under the rain, lived a 17-year-old boy named Marco Dela Cruz. He wasn't rich, not even close. His family barely managed to keep their small wooden house standing after every typhoon. His father, once a jeepney driver, had fallen ill and could no longer work, while his mother sold vegetables in the local market from sunrise to sunset. Marco's hands were rough from helping her carry baskets, but when he sang, his voice carried a softness that could melt even the hardest heart. From a young age, he found refuge in old records his grandfather left behind, and among them, one stood out: Elvis Presley. That golden voice, that passion, that charisma. Marco would close his eyes, listening to "Can't Help Falling in Love," dreaming of one day performing in front of people who would truly listen. His friends teased him, saying, "No one in America cares about a poor Filipino singing old songs." But Marco never stopped believing. He sang at weddings, in small cafes, and even at the church choir, saving every little tip in a cracked jar under his bed labeled, "Dream." He didn't know how, but deep in his heart, he believed that God had placed something extraordinary within him, and that someday, the world would hear it. One humid afternoon, while helping his mother in the market, a foreign tourist stopped to record Marco singing, "Love Me Tender," as he hummed while sorting vegetables. The man smiled, posted the clip online, and within days, Marco's life changed. The video exploded, millions of views, thousands of comments praising his voice. People wrote things like, "This boy is reincarnated Elvis," and "Someone get him on AGT." A few weeks later, an email arrived: "You've been invited to audition for America's Got Talent." Marco stared at the screen, speechless. His mother cried tears of disbelief. But the reality was harsh: they didn't have the money for a plane ticket. The entire village came together, neighbors, friends, even strangers donated what little they could. They organized small concerts, raffles, and sold homemade food to raise funds. When Marco finally boarded that plane, it wasn't just him leaving for America, it was the dream of an entire community, flying on fragile wings of hope. He clutched his guitar close as he whispered a prayer: "Lord, if this is meant for me, help me make them feel what I feel when I sing." The day of the audition came faster than he could imagine. Standing backstage at America's Got Talent, Marco felt small, surrounded by performers with glittering costumes, fancy equipment, and years of training. He wore a simple white shirt, his old jeans, and the same worn-out sneakers from Manila. His guitar had scratches, but it was his most precious possession. The stage lights were blinding, and as he peeked from behind the curtain, he saw the massive audience, the panel of judges, including Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, and Sofia Vergara. His heart pounded like a drum. The producer whispered, "You're next, kid." His knees trembled. He closed his eyes and remembered his mother's words that morning before he left for the airport: "Don't sing to impress them, Anik, my son. Sing to touch their hearts." When his name was called, "Please welcome, from the Philippines, Marco Dela Cruz," the crowd clapped politely. He stepped onto the stage, smiled nervously, and introduced himself in his soft accent. "Hello, my name is Marco. I come from the Philippines, and I'm here to sing one of my favorite Elvis songs." Simon raised an eyebrow, unimpressed at first. "Elvis? That's a big name to take on, young man." Marco nodded and simply said, "Yes, sir. But I'll try my best." The guitar chords echoed through the silent hall. Marco began softly: "Wise men say, only fools rush in," and within seconds, the audience froze. His tone was hauntingly familiar, yet filled with a tenderness that felt brand new. Simon leaned forward, eyes narrowing, then widening. Heidi's mouth fell open, and Sophia clutched her heart. It wasn't just imitation, it was soul. Marco wasn't singing as Elvis, he was singing with Elvis in his heart. His deep, velvet voice soared as if carried by angels, trembling with emotion. Midway through the song, he closed his eyes, and a single tear slipped down his cheek. The crowd stood up, first a few, then hundreds, then everyone. By the final line, "For I can't help falling in love with you," the entire theater erupted in thunderous applause. The judges stood, clapping and cheering. Simon's usual stone face softened. For a long moment, he said nothing. When the noise died down, Simon leaned toward his microphone, his voice shaking slightly: "I've been doing this for a long time, and I have never heard someone channel the spirit of Elvis Presley like that. You didn't copy him, you brought him back." The other judges agreed, their eyes glistening with tears. The crowd began chanting, "Golden buzzer! Golden buzzer!" Sophia reached across the table, her hand trembling, and smashed it. As golden confetti rained down, Marco fell to his knees, sobbing. For a moment, the world blurred into golden light. The host hugged him tightly as Simon came onto the stage, shaking his hand. "You've just made history, young man," he said. Marco could hardly speak, his voice cracking as he whispered, "This is for my family, and for everyone back home in the Philippines." His mother, watching from a small television in their crowded living room, screamed and cried with joy. Neighbors filled their house, cheering, hugging, waving Philippine flags. That night, the entire barangay village stayed awake, replaying the video over and over again. In interviews afterward, Marco remained humble. "I didn't expect this," he said softly. "I just wanted to sing like Elvis, because his songs remind me of my father. He used to sing them before he got sick." When reporters asked what he would do with his newfound fame, Marco smiled shyly. "I'll fix our roof, buy medicine for my dad, and help other kids who dream like me." His story spread across the internet, touching millions. People from around the world sent messages. "You gave us hope. You reminded us that real talent has no boundaries." And perhaps the most beautiful comment of all, when he sang, "I saw love." Months later, Marco stood once again on that same AGT stage, this time for the finals. But something deeper had already happened. His journey wasn't just about music anymore, it became a symbol of faith, perseverance, and the power of dreams that cross oceans. His father, now recovering, sat proudly in the audience, tears streaming down his face. As Marco sang, "If I Can Dream," he wasn't just performing for judges, he was singing for every child who had ever felt invisible. He sang for the dreamers, the believers, and the ones who never stopped praying. His final note hung in the air like a promise, that no matter where you come from, your voice can echo across the world if it comes from your heart. Simon stood once again, smiling through tears. "You reminded us why we do this show," he said softly. "It's not about fame. It's about moments like this, pure, human, and unforgettable." As the lights dimmed and the audience cheered his name, Marco whispered to himself, "Thank you, Lord." Somewhere, in the quiet corners of Manila, the sound of that voice, half Elvis, half angel, lingered through every radio and every heart. And from that day on, the boy who once sang to the walls of his wooden home became a voice that would live forever, not just as the Filipino who sang Elvis, but as the boy who made the world believe again in miracles.